go to some of our special guests. Thank you for being here too, sir. And just so everybody knows, on this day in 1972, Title IX was signed into law, and it included an important principle: protect fair competition for women's sports. For decades, we did. Before Title IX, only 2% of college athletic budgets went to women sports. With Title IX, the percentage of women playing college sports grew by more than 614%, and by more than 1,000% at the high school level. Title IX created a lifetime of opportunities for girls that did not exist before. And best of all, the benefit went far beyond competitive sports. Study shows that girls and women who participate in team sports are less likely to drop out of school and are more likely to be healthier and more confident. But 50 years to the day, after we made Title IX the law of the land, women's sports are facing an existential threat from radical activisms. There are so many things that are unfair about this new system. It erases women's sports. It attacks American values like fair competition are unimportant. And it creates a world in which female athletes who speak out are actually bullied by their peers in the media. Today, we want to hear directly from female athletes about why we must protect women's sports. With the love and support of their families, these women have dedicated their lives to pursuing excellence in sports that they love. I actually applaud them for speaking up about the hardships, the unfairness, and lost opportunities they have experienced. We should listen to them urgently so that we can protect and strengthen Title IX, so that women's sports can grow even stronger over the next 50 years. The members I have with me today want to experience some of the benefits of Title IX, but you also have a few members on this floor that have been fighting the injustice of what has been going on with this new radicalism. And on the floor, we have offered, my dear friend Greg Stubbe has been one of the leaders in this, of offering amendments and others. And I cannot thank the members and the athletes enough for being here and be willing to speak out. With that, let me first turn to an individual that deserves a lot of the credit, that has been making this issue an important issue. A husband, a father of daughters, who understands, an individual that has faith and ethics and really is concerned about the direction this is going and has made it an important issue for our entire conference, Congressman Jim Banks.
Thank you, Leader McCarthy. Thank you for your leadership, for bringing all of us together today. I think this is really important. I really appreciate you showing up to show your support along the way for the Republican Study Committee's efforts to protect Title IX. It was actually a Hoosier United States Senator who authored Title IX that was passed and signed into law 50 years ago today. It's never been under attack more than it is at this point, 50 years later. The Republican Study Committee's discharge petition for Greg Stubbe's bill to save women's sports now has nearly 200 co-signers, including Leader McCarthy, who was one of the very first members to go down to the well and sign on to this important discharge petition to force a vote on this important piece of legislation that Representative Stubbe will talk about a little bit more in a moment. And many of you came to the House Triangle in May to support Debbie Lesko and the Republican Study Committee's Women's Bill of Rights, which would protect sex-segregated activities, spaces, and organizations. So with that, I really look forward to hearing from our guests today, to hear your ideas, your stories, and your suggestions on how we can best respond to the Biden administration's inexcusable decision to effectively abolish Title IX on its 50th anniversary. With that, thank you again for being a part of this important discussion, and I yield to my friend and colleague from Florida, Representative Greg Stubbe.
Thank you, Chair Banks and Leader McCarthy, for having this today and to hear from some people that have been affected by these policies. You know, it's a sad day in America when we actually have to pass a bill to say that women's sports is going to be women's sports and men's sports is going to be men's sports. And an hour ago, this National Review article just came out, And I just want to read the first two sentences because I think it's illustrative of the vast differences between what we want to do in protecting women's sports and what this administration that currently is there wants to do with collegiate activities. The Biden administration on Tuesday proposed changes to the federal civil rights statute banning sex discrimination in federally funded education programs, including expanding protections to sexual orientation and gender identity. If adopted, the rule change would bar universities, any other federally funded institutions, from maintaining men and women's sports in sex-segregated spaces like locker rooms and dormitories. So they actually want to not have women's locker rooms and men's locker rooms. They actually, and now, before it was just kind of talked about, now they're actually saying it out loud that this is what they want to do and destroy women's sports. So 50 years of equality for women on the athletic field would be destroyed by what this administration wants to do. Emma Wyant is a person from my district. She was stripped of an NCAA Division I swimming championship title earlier this year in the 500-yard freestyle by a male swimmer by the name of Leah Thomas, who swam for years on the men's team. I'm honored to fight for women's ability to compete on the athletic field competitively and with each other. I'm honored to be a part of what we're trying to do, and I'm very glad to hear Leader McCarthy say that this will be one of the first 100 bills that the new Congress under his leadership will pass after we take the gavels in January. So thank you very much for being here today.
Well, Mr. Stubbe, thank you for your leadership on this, and there's so many members here that have shown real leadership, and I do want to send a special thanks out to the Republican Study Group committee, because they have really taken the leadership, and they're the largest group conference inside our Republican conference, but they have taken a leadership under Jim Banks, and this is great importance in watching what the president has done just today. So let's turn to Debbie Lesko. Debbie?
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Jim, for all your leadership in this. We're living in some really crazy times, aren't we? I mean, sometimes I feel like when I'm working here that we live in an alternative reality. Like the Democrats are saying one thing and Republicans are saying another thing, and it's just absolutely crazy when a nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court can't even define what a woman is. I mean, that's insane, okay? People need to get real, and they're always so hooked on the science, right? They always say, oh, well, science, we got to follow the science. Well, follow the science, all right? There's a difference between men and women. And that's why, believe it or not, I had to introduce a bill called the Women's Bill of Rights that actually defines in federal law what a woman is and what a man is. Gosh, seriously, it is some crazy times that we have to do legislation to define what a woman and a man is, but here we are. The Democrats, under one-party Democrat rule, have totally destroyed women's rights, women's and girls' rights. We no longer have girls and women's sports. We have co-ed sports and men's and boys' sports. That's it. This is wrong. I have a young 3-year-old granddaughter, and I do not want her living in a world where if she really works hard and really accomplishes things, that a biological male is going to be involved in the sports and she doesn't maybe have a chance. This is wrong. Republicans are going to correct this and get back to some sanity in America. And with that, I yield to my friend Kat Kamek from Florida.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here to really discuss and cover this important topic. I'm Kat Kamek from the Sunshine State, the free state of Florida, where we protect and value women's sports. I'm also a woman. Just in case anyone was wondering. Now, today, I serve as the youngest Republican woman in Congress today. I am 34 years old, and I have played sports for nearly half my life. From kindergarten all the way through college, I was an athlete. I played basketball, softball, volleyball, I cheered, and I even played golf. And it was in high school I was told that I couldn't join the golf team because I was a girl. And so we created the girls' team. Now, I look at this situation, and it's funny to me how we went from the boys-only club to now boys have a team and girls have a team, and you can have some co-ed teams, but now it's co-ed and boys, just like Debbie said. This isn't a progressive policy. This is regressive. This is backwards. And it is a slap in the face to every single woman and parent who has fought for their child to have an opportunity to play. And we all know how important sports are to young girls and to kids. So I am very proud to join my good friends, Leader McCarthy, Jim Banks, Debbie, Greg, Burgess, Claudia, Diana. Wow, I can't see all the way down. I'm 5'3" with T-Rex arms, so you can imagine me as an athlete. It was a sight. But thank you all so much for being here. It is so important to recognize the 50th anniversary of Title IX because now more than ever, we have to stand and defend women's sports as they are under attack from the woke left. This Congress, I have been working with Ranking Member Jordan and my colleagues on the Future of American Freedoms Task Force, where we are formulating the policies that we'll hit the ground running with come January 3rd, 2023. And our focus on this task force is to develop the policies that focus on protecting our foundational American freedoms that are under attack by cancel culture and the woke left. And I can tell you right now, we are focused on protecting women's sports on this task force, and Republicans will be leading the charge to defend both Title IX and to ensure that women's sports can continue to flourish and grow for the next 50 years. So thank you again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kat. And let's turn to Diana Harshberger, Congresswoman.
Well, thank you, Leader McCarthy and Chairman Banks, for hosting this very important roundtable. You know, it's heartening as a woman serving in Congress to know that the Republican leadership truly takes to heart these unique obstacles facing women today. I'm encouraged that I have the privilege to serve with members of Congress who are willing to take it beyond words and turn their support into action. Our athletes know better than anyone that actions speak louder than words. And it takes a team to accomplish great things. And I'm glad to be here today on the 50th anniversary of Title IX. This statute has protected Americans from discrimination on the basis of sex for half a century. No one in this room needs reminding of the dangers of gender discrimination, or in recent cases, throwing gender straight out the window. Title IX was created to ensure that women and girls had the same academic and athletic opportunities as men and boys. But when Democrats have referenced this statute in recent months, they completely abandoned the words woman and girl. This administration they think that sex is equated to gender identity. You know, there's 72 classes of that now, I think. It's up to 72. But Americans know better. As a pharmacist, I can tell you that our genders are distinguished by unique and beautiful biological differences. And if you follow the science, like Debbie said, guess what? You're going to learn that a woman can produce eggs and bear children while a man will never have that ability to do so. Just FYI. I have a son and two grandsons. Pretending that these differences do not exist is not only damaging, it is dangerous. And I look forward to hearing from all of these female leaders in the room today, and it's an honor of a lifetime to be a woman in Congress, and it is a very personal responsibility for me to fight for protections that make our future generations of little girls have the opportunity to lead this great nation. And with that, I think it's my pleasure to turn it over to my colleague from the great state of Utah, Congressman Burgess Owens.
If I may say one thing about Burgess, he's probably the best athlete in Congress. He's the only one that has a Super Bowl ring. But if you asked him about that, he would first tell you about being a father to daughters.
Okay, thanks so much, Leader McCarthy. I appreciate it, and Chairman Banks. Years ago, I remember sitting around. I have 6 children, 5 girls, 1 boy, 16 grandkids. When my 6 girls and my 6 kids were still small, I remember sitting around a dinner table. And my dream at that time, very simply, was to make sure I taught my son how to be a man and how to teach my daughters how to recognize one. And men understand one thing about the specialty of womanhood. We will die for womanhood. because we know that's really where our culture is defined. I'm one of those guys that, as a former athlete, was very shy, very introverted, never thought I'd ever speak in front of more than 2 people one time. It was through sports that I gained the confidence. I understood things like you don't look at the scoreboard, you look at the hustle. Things that young ladies are realizing, that we all realize, the things we can do, our potential, and it's through sports. We're fighting against an ideology, my friends, that is tenacious, is shameless, and it only thrives on lies. The fact that we're now told there's no difference between men and women is a bold-faced lie. It's almost like saying there's no such thing as gravity. Well, jump off this building and see how well that goes. There's laws put in place by God in heaven that makes us happy. I was raised very simply, very, very remarkable community, that if you want to be a happy young man, what you do is you grow up, you love God, country, family, and respect women and authority. I appreciate so much what you guys are doing right now. I appreciate the courage that you're showing, not to bow to the hard left. There are women and girls who depend on your courage, your voice, and we're just so thankful to be part of it. We're so thankful to be able to help represent what you deserve, which is the opportunity to go out, compete, and win. And when you start putting men into the picture, it changes that equation, as we all know. So thank you guys so much. Just know that we have a party that's all in. We understand, respect, love what women have given to our country. Matter of fact, if it was not for you, we wouldn't know what to do, to be honest with you. So our goal, very simply, is we work hard to make sure that we can gain your respect. And by giving you the opportunity to do the things you do best and to thrive and to win and achieve is part of our responsibility to make sure that happens. Okay, so thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Let's turn to Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Claudia?
Thank you, Leader McCarthy and Chairman Banks. This is really an honor to be here. And I consider myself, Kat, you might be the youngest woman over here, but I'm one of the older ones. And for me, I was 11 years old when Title IX was passed, and we didn't have a lot of opportunities. I was already a competitive equestrian, competing on the A circuit at that point, and we didn't have the kind of opportunities that Title IX has afforded women. I was also the starting center of my basketball team. I'd be kind of short in today's standards, but also a competitive curler, which I think is really important that people know. That's a sport that women and men can do, and probably do that equally, and also a golfer. So all these opportunities had to be litigated even after Title IX was passed. And I remember a lot of lawsuits when I was a college student, even after, where those rights had to be litigated in federal court to preserve Title IX, even though it existed. So I think it's really amazing that Debbie has come out with a Women's Bill of Rights. Debbie Lesko, great leader in our conference, and obviously Jim Banks. And I would concur with Kevin that I would say Burgess is probably one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete, at least on our side of the aisle. But these experiences that I had as a woman, having the opportunity to compete in sports, and at the time not really accessing Title IX, is really just changed my life. The ability to compete, the ability to have teamwork, to be able to actually compete with men on many levels was really important for me in my development. I'm just grateful that we have so many profound leaders in our conference, people who are willing to stand up, and many women out there who have taken a strong stand against the woke culture to stand up for women's rights. This isn't we're not against anyone, we're just for women, and I think that's the important point that we're making here. So I just am really honored to be here today to be here on the 50th anniversary. Really disappointed that our administration is not recognizing the strength and the greatness that women bring. And I might add, the most women we've had in Congress, and I think in the new Congress we're going to have more Republican women than we've ever had in history. And that's a huge accomplishment to our leader and all of our leaders here on the dais. So thank you so much to everyone for your leadership. It's an honor to be here also as a former student athlete, and I will challenge Kat. We're going to do a one-on-one basketball event. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, let me now turn to Jennifer with IWF. I think you have an introduction.
Yes, I'm Jennifer with Independent Women's Forum. I want to thank you all for your leadership, and particularly Representative Banks and Lesko for your leadership on the Women's Bill of Rights. It's so important that people understand that words mean what they say. And we know what sex means. There are two of them. We know what woman means. We know what female means. And the fact that we have to define that in law today is actually somewhat pathetic, but I'm very grateful to you all for your leadership on that. I am introducing Cynthia Manzolione, and Cynthia is a Team USA World Champion track athlete. She had the unfortunate experience of having to compete against a male athlete in Malaga, Spain. But what's really interesting about Cynthia's story, well, first of all, she beat him. So good for her. But also, within a very short period of time, she came home to Hawaii, and her daughter was also faced with having to compete against a trans athlete in track, a male athlete. And if anybody says that this isn't happening frequently, or it isn't happening more and more every day, you really only need to look at Cynthia and her family, because what are the chances that it would happen to a mother and a daughter? Now, it may not be reported that often, especially at the high school level. I think it's actually being deliberately underreported. But Cynthia and her daughter have an important story to tell, so thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Aloha. Thank you so much for having me today. I am from Maui, which we all know Patsy Mink, the original founder, one of the founding co-founders of Title IX, is from Maui. And so I hold Title IX very dear to my heart. I teach all my young athletes about it. And I teach them the original intentions of Title IX, which is sex-based. Nowhere in the document does it say gender or gender identity. So I make sure they know that difference. I am the defending world champion in the 400 meters. I am supposed to be in Finland right now defending my title. However, they're letting that same athlete compete again. And so I have protested the meet. I came here instead to speak with you all. And I let the WMA president know that I was protesting the meet because of this policy, and they needed to change the policy. This is not a personal issue, this is a policy issue. And of course, she kicked the can down the road and said there's nothing we can do, which I call BS on. So here I am today because I told her, how can I value a medal from this competition when it's not a fair playing field? And I think what we're going to continue to see is that these females are going to be placed in these situations, and they are continuously today, where these medals and prizes and accolades won't mean anything. They'll be losing out on the money, the places, the scholarships, all of it. I had a heartbreaking phone call from a mother in California a couple weeks ago. Her daughter had to place third to get to the state championship, third in her section. And the top two placers were both male-bodied athletes. One, she came in fourth, by the way, the daughter. So she missed out on going to states her junior year. The second place athlete had just competed in the boys cross-country team a few months before. So I agree with Jennifer that this is deliberately being underreported. And my family is an example, and there are many, many other stories that come to us because we speak up. So I just want to thank you all for standing strong with us on our side, because I'm there on the front lines when the girls that I coach are crying and having anxiety issues because they have to line up next to someone who only has to work a fraction as hard as they do. And so I see it firsthand, and my question is, why aren't we talking about the mental health of our female athletes? That needs to be brought up. Let's not just talk about the mental health of one group. Let's talk about the mental health of our female athletes and the impact this is having. So I just want to say thank you, mahalo. I came from Maui to do this, and I just appreciate all of you. Thank you, mahalo.
I just want to say thank you very much for making the decision to be here and coming that far. I know that's a 10-hour flight, but the comments you made are very powerful, and what you're standing up to is making a real difference, so thank you. Let's now turn to Penny Nance for an introduction.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader and Mr. Banks. I really am so appreciative of being here. Joining me in the room are our Young Women for America leaders. We have collegiate chapters as well as our Concerned Women for America leaders around the country with about 500,000 members. You know, I have to think that Patsy Mink is turning over in her grave right now. I mean, we have really destroyed women's sports. And as a, and may I just also say, I just came from a rally, in which we had the right and the left joined together unified. I mean, how much does that happen in Washington these days? And it was just really a beautiful moment. This should be a moment that knows no boundaries in party. This is actually recognizing the original intent of the law. But let me say, as a Christian woman, I am so sick of people calling us, the very people that call us science deniers, the very people who do not believe that biology is, that it's binary, that sex is binary. They don't recognize that DNA is stamped in every cell in our body, and that there's 6,500 different characteristics in our DNA. They don't understand that women work so hard to achieve. And, you know, as a woman, I grew up, I think, Congresswoman, about the same time you did, and my choices in sports, and it was still getting litigated, right? This is, you know, the mid-'80s. It was still getting worked out. I had two choices for sports. I had cheerleading and I had basketball. I mean, that's it. My daughter, on the other hand, who is now 25 years old, had a beautiful experience of lacrosse and track and, you know, field hockey and all the amazing opportunities. That's what we want. We want women to be able to compete at all different levels. We actually want there not to be discrimination in education. And so I just look for a day when we'll be unified on that point. Joining me today is a beautiful young woman who's one of our Young Women for America leaders named Macy Petty. She is a scholarshiped volleyball athlete in Tennessee, and she's also one of our Young Women for American leaders. She has testified before 2 state legislatures, and she was one of our leaders, literally standing outside the NCAA championship swim match in Georgia Tech, in which Leah Thomas stole the trophies of women. And so it is not always a comfortable place, Mr. Leader, for them to be. It is a hard place for our young women to speak up, but I just want to say how proud I am of Macy and the others and just introduce you to her.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am a Young Women for America ambassador. I also intern over at the Family Research Council. I'm sitting down, so you can't tell, but I'm really tall. So because of this, my recruiting process started really early. I started getting letters back in the 8th grade. So part of recruiting in volleyball is you go to these massive national volleyball tournaments. I was that girl that never got to go to prom. So I would travel all over, and college recruiters would come watch us at these tournaments. And something important is that there was boys teams and there was girls teams, and they played on opposite sides of the convention center. And the boys' nets were 7 inches higher than the girls' nets. But despite this, my volleyball team had to compete against another girls' team with a biological male member. So this athlete slammed the ball in our faces in front of all of these college recruiters who were evaluating our skill sets. This was unbelievably unfair and unjust. I did not sign up to be on a co-ed league. But this really opened my eyes to the problem. Not only was this a major safety concern for me and my parents, but it also showed the threat that this brings to female athletics. I also, like Ms. Penny said, got to stand outside of the Georgia Tech swimming complex as Leah Thomas won a national championship. And I think that I work pretty hard, and I've never been anywhere close to a national championship. So I can't imagine how these girls must have felt knowing that they lost before they even walked in. That just showed me that this was not a theoretical issue. This is happening, and national championships are being stolen. I try to use my voice as a female athlete. I know a lot of other NCAA athletes are being silenced, but we are the ones that these policies are affecting. We are the victims of this ideology. I am extremely disheartened to know that this administration is trying to take us back 50 years and is once again throwing females in the back seat, but I am very encouraged to know that you guys are here and are fighting for us and do hear us. So I'm very grateful for you and the stance that you take.
Macy, I want you to know I'm very impressed with your courage, but your statements. I did not know it was 7 inches higher.
It is 7 inches.
Just that alone tells you the fundamental difference.
Absolutely, and everybody knows it.
And this was for the competition of where the college was, we're going to rate you for scholarships and others.
Yes, sir. There was people evaluating our skills for potential college scholarships.
Well, thank you for standing up.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you greatly. Let's now turn to Nicole for an introduction.
Thank you, Leader McCarthy and Chairman Banks, and each member here who is taking back the true intent of Title IX here in Congress. It really means a lot. My name is Nicole Hudgins, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Family Policy Alliance. We're a national organization representing hundreds of thousands of Americans who believe in saving girls' sports and advancing family values. We also work with an incredible group of state family policy councils, about 40 state family policy councils, men and women who are boots on the ground in their states, fighting to save girls' sports and advance family values. We're very concerned about what the administration has done in attempting to redefine Title IX, but we're thankful you're here to fight back. And something that we're doing is helping equip those hundreds of thousands of Americans to fight back by submitting comments in the Federal Register against this rule. And something else that we're very excited about is the fact that 18 states have now passed Save Girls Sports laws. And we're so thankful to be connected with many of those state legislators who are fighting hard, including the first legislator who successfully passed a Save Girls Sports law, and that is Representative Barbara Ehart, who's a friend of mine. I'm so thankful she gets to be here with us. She successfully passed this Fairness in Women's Sports Act in 2020, and she's quite an athlete herself. She was a basketball player for Idaho State University. She was an NCAA Division I basketball coach at UC Santa Barbara, Brigham Young University, Washington State University, and Cal State Fullerton as the head coach. She is passionate. She can ref the game. And she's so passionate about honoring the generations that have come before her to pave the way, and about paving the way for the next generation. So thank you, Representative Ehart, for being here, and the floor is yours.
I appreciate that, Speaker McCarthy. No, Leader McCarthy, good committee, and friends, it is an honor to be here. Let me just start by saying Title IX changed my life, hands down. When I was born in the 60s, raised in the 70s, people don't understand that our options as women were very few. And I could be a mom. I wanted to do that, but maybe a secretary. Did not want to do that, a school teacher. But when people had asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I literally told them that I wanted to play sports. And you know what I was told? That's not what girls do. But I held on to my dreams. Obviously able to play high school ball, but I had the opportunity to play Division I women's basketball on a scholarship at Idaho State, and then was able to go on, as Nicole had shared, on a 15-year college coaching career. And I want to tell you, I mean, there's a lot you learn in doing that. But it was in the summer, towards the summer of 2018 at the end of it, and I'm listening and I'm watching and I'm even posting about this stuff that is taking place in Connecticut. And I was walking a Sunday evening, and I'm thinking about these young women who are here today representing Connecticut, running track, having to go against biological males that had run on the men's side, the boys' side, and decided they wanted to run on the girls' side, and they were losing. And I'm walking around in the evening thinking, my goodness, somebody should do something about that. And then it dawned on me, I'm a legislator. I create laws. I can do something about that. And with my background and the credentials that go with having coached with a 15-year career, it really set the stage to be able to come forward and bring the first ever Fairness in Women's Sports Act with the help of Matt Sharp and Alliance Defending Freedom. Not only did we do it in Idaho, I've had the pleasure to testify in many of these other states that have brought it forward, and we're not going to stop. We only have 18 states to date, which of course is a lot, but we have 28 more states to go. And of course, with the leadership of all of you, it's been so impressive to sit here and listen to you. With your leadership, we will change this, because what we have on our side, we have the court of public opinion. And moms and dads do not want to see their daughters losing out to biological males. And let me just say one other thing. The audacity of Mr. Biden to think that he somehow has the moral authority to change what the definition of sex is, to change that which the Lord set forth, shame on him. Mr. Speaker, thank you so very much for allowing me to be part of this. It's very much appreciated.
Well, first of all, let me thank you. Let me thank you for your leadership. Leadership nationwide being the first. And I love your passion, but I hope, I turned to Jim, I go, I hope she's coming to the press conference. You are fabulous. Thank you. And I think you have to do more than ref. You might have to coach them a little bit. They haven't played in a while. So.
Wait, maybe I could play.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Mary Beth for another introduction.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you all and sitting at this table with you wonderful leaders and you wonderful athletes who are being so brave to speak out. Many of us at FRC have a very personal stake in this. Not only is Macy one of our wonderful summer interns, but my colleague Mary, who works on pro-life policy, it was an NCAA athlete for Notre Dame on their basketball team, and she was the very last person to make the team as a walk-on. And so she's used that as an opportunity to speak on this issue and get her voice out there as well. My colleague Meg, who works on the policy just specifically as our senior fellow for education studies, she's been working tirelessly on this issue as well. And then I, within federal affairs and government affairs, have certainly been engaged in legislation, supporting the many bills that you guys have put forward, as well as the discharge petition. We've got tens of thousands of messages that have been sent from our constituents in support of the discharge petition, thanking those of you who have signed it to let you know that the people support you and appreciate it, as well as messages to encourage those who have not to do so. And obviously we're going to be very engaged in the rulemaking process, talking to OMB and OIRA with 12866 meetings and engaging our constituency with comments. This is a very, very important issue. We just had a publication today by you, Mr. Leader, in our Washington stand on Title IX, and it was so wonderful of you to do that. Appreciate that. And so I am so happy to be here with you all, and I have the pleasure of introducing Riley Gaines. She is a 12-time All-American, a 4-time SEC champion, an SEC record holder, an SEC Female Scholar Athlete of the Year, and a former University of Kentucky swimmer who tied Leah Thomas for 5th place in the 200-yard freestyle at the 2022 NCAA Division I Women's Swimming and Diving Competition. She is also an independent women's forum storyteller who's bravely speaking out about her experiences and the threats to women's sports. So thank you so much for being here, Riley.
Thank you. I think you made me sound a lot cooler than I really am. But thank you. Especially thank you to the RSC for having me and just giving me this opportunity to speak for myself and all the other athletes that have felt silence amidst facing unfair competition and rulemakers that disregard women. Like she said, my name is Riley. I just recently graduated from the University of Kentucky. I'm not going to mention all my accolades again because that's not the point of this. But all to say, being successful at such an elite level is far from easy, and it's really hard to put into words, the amount of work and sacrifice that it takes, but I'm going to try. So I started swimming at the age of 4. My summer league coach encouraged me to start swimming at 8. So this meant in 2nd grade I was swimming about 5 to 6 days a week at 2 hours every single practice, and it only got harder from there. By the time I got to middle school, I was waking up at 4:45 in the morning to swim before school because just one practice a day was never enough. I missed out on family vacations and sleepovers with friends. I trained all summer over Christmas breaks. I traveled for national level meets, causing me to miss school, spring break, and I think there's a common theme here because I was also the girl that missed proms. My days entailed practice before school, going to school, going back to practice, going home to eat dinner and do homework, icing my injuries, and then falling asleep exhausted. But every day I would wake up and do it all again in hopes to become the best I could be and fulfill my dreams of racing against the world's best. And eventually I got there. In November of last year, near the middle of our collegiate season, it looked as if I was going to get my chance. I was ranked 4th in the nation in the 200 freestyle behind some amazing names I was familiar with and one that I wasn't. This was the first time I'd become aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. For all I knew, this was a swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania who had come out of nowhere senior year to post the fastest times in the nation. Obviously, this didn't make sense to me. Being someone the same grade as Leah, I had never heard this name, which is very rare in swimming. It wasn't until I read an article clarifying that Leah was formerly Will Thomas, a male who swam for 3 years on the men's team at UPenn. I was shocked, but thought to myself it wouldn't matter come March because there was no way the NCAA was going to allow this to happen. I was proven very wrong only 3 weeks before the start of our meet, when the NCAA announced that Thomas would in fact be able to compete with the women. I got to personally witness and feel the effect this competition had on myself and other female athletes at the meet. I know I can't speak for everyone, but I can attest to the number of tears shed by the 9th and 17th place finishers who missed being named an All-American by 1 place. I can attest to the extreme discomfort in the locker rooms, and I can attest to the talk of anger and frustration from the girls who had worked so hard and sacrificed so much to get to this moment. Who took into account our feelings, and who has taken any sort of accountability since? No one. It's disheartening to know our voices have no weight on an organization we have done so much for, an organization we've essentially dedicated our whole lives to. As you all know, Thomas and I raced and touched at the exact same time down to the 100th. Having only 1 fifth-place trophy, the NCAA handed it to Thomas and told me mine would eventually come in the mail, but Thomas needed to hold the trophy for photo purposes. So not only were we forced to race against a man, we were put on the back burner when faced with a difficult situation that the NCAA had not been prepared for. It's crucial for the NCAA and the Biden administration to open their eyes and recognize the irrefutable damage that is being done to women's sports and everything that Title IX was created for. There's no equity, fairness, sportsmanship, or opportunity for women to succeed at an elite level without sex-based categories. Until accountability is taken and rules are in place to protect biological females, the integrity of women's sports is lost. Around the country, women are told to be silent. We are told to just let the conversation die down and comply so we don't step on any toes or ruffle any feathers. We cannot continue to ignore the biological and anatomical differences between males and females that are blatantly obvious and scientifically proven. If change is not made, this is only the beginning of a slippery slope. It's only a matter of time until 1 transgender athlete winning a national title in a female's sport goes to 3 and then to 10 and so on. Allowing male athletes to switch teams when they feel necessary is not only an infringement on female athletes but also a mockery of Title IX. I will continue speaking out and standing up for myself. Others who are afraid to use their voice are told they can't. Past female athletes who have fought so hard to get equal opportunities in sports, and for future female athletes who will lose athletic opportunities if this madness continues. Thank you, guys.
All right, I want to tell you, that was very powerful. Very, very powerful. And your courage and you're owed an apology. You really are. I know.
Not just that, all female athletes are.
It's just offensive. Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for standing up. Christina.
Yes. All right, we'll see if we can stretch here. Thank you so much, Leader McCarthy, Chairman Banks, and others for having us here today. My name is Christiana Kiefer, and I'm Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. We are the only organization in the nation who have filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of female athletes to defend their rights under Title IX. Title IX has promised women and girls so much: equal access and opportunities in sports, the opportunity to learn lifelong skills, scholarship opportunities. But those opportunities are being denied to women and girls across the country today. I represent female athletes across the country who are being denied Title IX protections right now. Chelsea Mitchell lost 4 state championship titles, 2 All-New England awards due to biological males competing in her category. Selena Soul is here in the audience. She lost the opportunity to advance to the next level of competition due to biological males. Alana Smith, also here in the audience, lost the opportunity as a freshman to be named runner-up at a very elite meet due to a biological male. Madison Kenyon and Mary-Kate Marshall, also in the audience, lost to biological males in their collegiate competition in the state of Idaho, and the list goes on. Also represent Lainey Armistead here in the audience, who is helping her state defend their Save Women's Sports law against attacks from activists and the ACLU. What is happening to women and girls across the country is a travesty. On the 50th anniversary of Title IX, we ought to be celebrating, but instead, there is so much work ahead of us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this. Thank you for your work on this, and we look forward to working with you in the future to make sure women and girls continue to have the opportunity to be champions.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Mitchell. Thank you for having me. I'm a former high school track and field athlete from Canton High School, and I was ranked one of the fastest girls in Connecticut. When I lined up in my starting blocks, I should have known that I had a shot at first place. Unfortunately, I was forced to compete against male athletes in the girls category for all 4 years of my high school career. As a result of a state policy that let them compete in girls' sports, I lost out on 4 state championship titles and 2 All-New England awards. Girls deserve fair competitions. When we're given those opportunities, we can excel. When those opportunities are threatened or taken away, we lose. While this issue is very personal for me, it's not just about me. It's about every young woman who dreams of competing. We should have the opportunity to succeed and to chase our dreams. And this can only happen if we can compete on a level playing field. We should be here celebrating 50 years of Title IX protections for women and girls in sports. Instead, we're here because we don't know if those protections will last another 50 years. Thank you.
I want to thank you because really when you thought about this a few years back, you think, what do you think 50 years would be? How exciting a time would we have to celebrate all the successes? And each and every one of you told a personal story how you're affected, but each and every one of you talked about it, not about yourself, but about women's sports overall. And I want to thank you for the courage of doing this because I'm afraid out in America, they think it's only happening 1 or 2 places. I hope everybody understood today it's happening everywhere. From mother and daughter, from 4 years of high school. This has been going on for quite some time. And if I take one moment for all those athletes that have been affected too, that didn't get to speak but are sitting in the audience, could you please stand just so we can see and say, thank you for coming? Yeah, go right ahead. I want you to know one thing, we heard you. We've been fighting on this. We have an administration that cannot listen. Maybe they listen, but they listen to one side, and they listen to the wrong approach. And this isn't a partisan issue. This should not divide this nation. It should unite the nation to correct this, especially on the 50th anniversary. So I don't have the last word. I want to give it to Jim Banks, because he's been a real leader in this, especially with the RSC, what Greg Stubbe has been doing, with Debbie Lesko, which everybody here. And so, Jim, I want to turn it over to you before we can take some questions.
Well, thank you again to our leader. Please give him a round of applause for his leadership. As Leader McCarthy said, we hear you. And at Republican Study Committee, we're a caucus of 160 Republicans in the House. We've taken the message that you've sent us here today and put it into action with Debbie Lesko's Women's Bill of Rights, which has how many co-sponsors at this point? Several dozen. I mean, most of our members have signed on to it. Greg Stubbe's Save Women's Sports Bill, many co-sponsors. The discharge petition that has nearly 200 signatures, needs 218 signatures to force Speaker Pelosi to put it on the floor for a vote. That's why we're doing it. So we've taken the message that you've sent us here today, we've put it into action, and we're going to continue to fight for you. As the leader said a little bit ago, I'm a girl dad. My youngest is here, my 9-year-old. We do this for them, right? We're fighting for you, we're fighting for them, the next generation, so that they too can have an opportunity to compete in women's sports. Annie Banks is a little short, but she's a mean defender on the basketball court, Kat. So, and as a dad, I love going and watching them compete. They're born competitors like all of you, and I'm gonna keep doing my part as a member of Congress to fight for them, to fight for you. So, thank you to everyone who's been a part. It's been a powerful conversation today, and we appreciate so much that all of you have been a part of it.
We'll open up for questions. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Keith Fox.